Yeah, nice to meet you.
You
So
too.
are you in Australia?
Usually I am. At the moment, I'm in Vegas. I'm just in a hotel
Oh,
room here, just off the strip. I've been attending SAP Tech Ed, which is a big international sort of technology conference. It's been a whirlwind month. I went to South Korea about 3.5 weeks ago. I got a call on a Sunday morning and said, "Can you be in South Korea tomorrow? We want you to talk at an international mayors forum." So I packed a backpack with 3 days worth of clothes and went to South Korea. And then
wow.
while I was in South Korea, I got another call saying, "Hey, can you come talk about Horizon State in the Ukraine? We need you here in 3 days." So I'm like, "Wow, okay." Flew off to the Ukraine,
Okay, sure.
and then and that backed right on to this trip to the US. So I flew from the Ukraine to New York to talk to the United Nations, and now
Mm.
across to Vegas to talk at SAP Tech Ed. So I've had to buy some new clothes, and I've used laundry service many times.
That's so cool. It's the life of a blockchain entrepreneur, right? It's
It's
the
pretty crazy at the moment, yeah.
really the big thing that's going on now, in my opinion. But
Mm, mm,
anyway, yeah, I'm just sharing to Facebook because I want us to go live on Facebook.
sure.
Give me 1 second. All right, done. Yeah. So all right. Just to give you a bit of an intro, I'm just a regular guy. I've got some expertise, limited expertise, but decent in blockchain stuff, and I invest in blockchain. I'm just like I buy tokens and stuff like that.
Sure, sure.
And yeah, I felt there was a need to delve into some of the up and coming ICOs and stuff. So I'm reaching out to a bunch of people and just interviewing them about what their product is. And I read your white paper. I think it's really cool. It's really
Thank you.
ambitious, and I wanted to just dig into it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, look, I think I think the simplest, most concise explanation is that thanks to blockchain technology, thanks to distributed ledger technology, we have the opportunity to create a ballot box, which is unhackable. Obviously, a digital ballot box, but for the longest time, we've continued to sort of organize ourselves in regards to our democratic processes and tools in very sort of archaic, centralized, physical methods. Getting people down to polling stations, asking them to write on a piece of paper and put it in a box, because even with the advent of the internet, there hasn't been any opportunity to do this online with assurances that the vote result is going to be secure. So traditionally, you might have an SQL database, which is centralized. Maybe it's replicated across a cloud network, but ultimately, there's still kind of a single point of failure there. So by leveraging the same benefits and qualities that makes Bitcoin possible, this distributed ledger that relies on consensus, and once it's sort of agreed upon, it's locked in stone. We can do the same sort of thing with votes. So in the simplest sort of terms, you swap out a Bitcoin with a vote, and you get all the same sort of benefits, which provide that sort of immutability, that trust, the irreversibility, the ability to go back and count it retrospectively and always get the same result, because the transactions can't be modified once they're sort of locked in. So it's exciting. It's the first time in history that we have the opportunity to really think seriously about conducting online voting. And that's what our platform does. It delivers that. And it's been working since February of this year for a democratic movement in Australia called My Vote. And now we're in the process of commercializing it. And this is why we have sort of gone on this sort of whirlwind world tour, promoting the tech at various conferences and talking to investors and indeed potential partners as well.
Awesome. So yours is a layer on top of the Ethereum network, right? You're doing an ERC-20 token.
Correct. Yep.
And basically you're using Ethereum as the immutable database that stores the votes.
Yep.
And
that's
then
right.
is the rest of your platform centralized, or how are you building the rest of your platform?
We have a bunch of modules developed, a bunch of modules under development, and the functionality for these are quite varied. So, for example, we're working on a campaign fundraising system, which we utilize the HST tokens, our ERC-20 token, for the purposes of campaign fundraising and letting independent politicians challenge for seats, utilizing our platform and indeed the community as it grows to help fund that opportunity for them. We will obviously be utilizing HST tokens to pay the fees to commit votes to the blockchain. And we've also got some interesting other ideas which we're currently working through, such as the opportunity to use HST to incentivize constituents to consume information that is going to lead to better outcomes. So,
something like a basic attention token, something like that, right?
Yeah, a basic attention token, but instead of paying people for effectively their attention or looking at adverts, instead it's about paying them for their attention to understand the issue they're about to vote on in more detail. So hopefully we can get better democratic outcomes by making sure that the people involved in creating those outcomes are well informed, as opposed to perhaps just taking whatever they saw on Fox or CNN or Channel 7 in Australia and running with that small piece of information, which is usually quite biased.
That's cool. That's a very good idea. And so so my understanding of your token system is that it's an ERC20 token. Obviously, you're going to be you use the phrase that it's basically it's the currency that's used to purchase. It's kind of like gas in Ethereum, right? It's basically
that's right.
To use your system to run some kind of vote or some kind of survey. You have to pay in HST.
That's right. So it becomes the sort of the currency, the economic tool to achieve these outcomes for customers. Now, there are a few ways that this can happen. One is from customers, such as governments or indeed multinational enterprises, utilizing the interfaces we've already developed and maybe white labeling them. So that would require very little effort from them, and we suspect it will be quite attractive to businesses wanting to get up and running fast. We're also developing SDKs and SDKs and APIs so that we can have customers work on their own interfaces or indeed implement some of our features and functionality into their existing product suite or their existing offering, their existing tools and services. And the third avenue is really about opening this up to a wide and public development community, so that, for example, and this is probably a bad example because we don't really need a secure vote when it comes down to your soccer club, as an example. But if you're a developer and you have a small community and you would like to utilize the HST platform and all of the benefits it provides, you could utilize our API and our SDK to create a system for your own community to be participating in a democratic process. And you could skin this in two ways. You could either be buying the HST yourself and covering the costs for your community, or that cost could be passed on in membership fees or something to that effect. But it is important to say that the votes are not tokens, in the sense that one token does not equal one vote. And this is really important because we don't want people effectively buying votes. That would be bad.
Yeah. So it was the customer is whoever wants to run the vote, not the people. Right. So.
That's right. So it's an interesting model in that sense, because most blockchain-based businesses and many of the ICOs that are launching are a sort of direct-to-consumer kind of model, whereas our business model is really primarily B2B. It's about bringing on governments, of which we have numerous in-play opportunities. It's about bringing on some global NGOs and some multinational organizations. And it's their users, their staff, their constituents, their citizens, which will utilize our technology, but sometimes they won't even know they're utilizing it because their sort of interface with this tech will be through a customer of ours. And the exception here is, for example, maybe with that smaller community opportunity, an independent developer or an independent community wanting to utilize our tools, and maybe there'll be some more visibility there. But it just depends on how they want to structure it.
Would my vote be an example of an entity that you'd put in that sort of class?
So my vote, right now, they're actually not promoting openly that our tech is what underpins their system. This is all sort of relatively fresh in terms of us. So for a little bit of background, I've been working with my vote now for about 2 years. I was on their council, and I devised and led the development of the technology, which has led to the point we're at with Horizon State. And so now we're spinning out the tech so that we can decouple their sort of democratic philosophy from our opportunity to commercialize the technology with other parties. So, it's basically separating democracy and the technology which enables it, so we can then insert this into other democratic processes and tools around the world for different people. Yeah.
How long does it take to get into something like if you're dealing, I don't know if you see it you're mainly dealing with, say, governments directly or through a partner, but how long does that process take? I imagine that being a long process to get.
Yeah, so the sales process for getting into government is sometimes quite long and usually quite expensive. Now, this is part of the reason that we've set a pretty ambitious target for ourselves of US 30 million throughout this process, because ultimately the more we raise, the quicker we're able to execute, and with more frequency and regularity are we able to stay engaged. And so the anticipation is that we will have a global sales force. We'll have people on the ground in the USA, probably both West and East Coast. We'll have people on the ground in Europe, maybe in Switzerland and United Kingdom, indeed in Asia as well. And this will enable us to stay engaged and keep pushing these opportunities with some significant amount of confidence. However, the government plays, while that's kind of the holy grail in terms of a social good, for good mission, there are lots of tremendous opportunities for this tech in enterprise and corporate as well. So we're in late stage talks with a global non-governmental organization who deals in matters of international conservation. And they're going to be utilizing our tech next year to poll their sort of 5 to 10 million members on matters of conservation, what they should be focusing on and where the money should be directed. So that's just one example of a sales pipeline that is able to be achieved faster and start, delivering revenue to the business and value back to token holders quite fast.
Are you building, like when they say we want to use your technology, are you building their interface, for example, or whatever technology they need to use that's specific to their use case? And if so, are you paid in dollars or are they buying HST for that?
Yeah, so the way it will typically work is that we engage in a very traditional business relationship where we are paid in fiat, AUD or USD or whatever the case is based on the jurisdiction. And yes, most of these engagements will be ad hoc in that there'll be varying requirements for each customer. And in the early days, I think there'll be a good amount of work with each customer, making sure that all of their processes are appropriately accommodated for, and that their policies are done so in a similar way. Moving forward, I think, sorry, come down with a bit of a cold while I was in the Ukraine, which hasn't been great, but yeah. So as we progress further down this path, and there'll be sort of a model that sort of becomes more common, and so rework and additional work will become less and less over time. And in regards to HST as sort of the fuel for the system, we can do it one of two ways. If the organization is happy to implement processes to organize the buying of HST from the free market, then they're welcome to do that. Alternatively, we're more than happy to facilitate that process for them and just charge them sort of, for example, a cost per vote in fiat, and they don't have to worry about the HST side of it. But underneath, the HST is still what's catering for all of their transactions.
Okay, very cool. And so to just complete the cycle, the value of the HST comes from governments and NGOs and so on being able, requiring this to use your system to fuel it. And where do they buy that from? Well, they buy some of that from you because you have an allotment, and also they can buy some from anyone who participates in the token sale, right?
That's right. So it'll be primarily a free market trade. We do have sort of a reserve of our own, but we only anticipate that we'll need to use this if, for whatever reason, a very large customer comes on very fast and they're not able to acquire the appropriate amount of HST from the free market, in which case we will certainly part with some of our reserve. But yes, ultimately, the value equation here for potential and prospective participants in our token sale is that if they believe that our team has the capability to sign on important customers, be it national governments, state governments, international organizations, multinational enterprise, these sorts of customers, then as we bring on more customers, obviously demand for HST will increase because the volume of votes and other functions that require HST will also increase. And so it's a relatively simple supply and demand model in that if we can create the demand for HST, then that shifts the price. So, we're pretty confident. Our team is pretty stellar, if I don't say so myself, relatively biased, of course, but we've got people who have been involved with extremely large government tenders and won them, tens of millions of dollars. People that deal with budgets of in excess of $100 million every other year, working on very, very large enterprise deals. So we've got the commercial nous, we've got the technical ability. Everything's pointed in the right direction, and we're pretty excited about what the next few months holds.
Awesome. So, okay, where can one participate in this? I mean, obviously, you're doing an ICO. And, I guess that will be held on your site, right? Your regular site, horizonstate.com.
Yeah.
And
So
I mean, you're giving away what, 60% during the token sale, and then do you have any exchanges that are on board already, as far as, where people want to buy them to flip? Because sometimes people do that, right? Or if
of
people
course,
want to buy
yeah. So to recap the process as it exists right now, we are about to open up a pre-sale. If anybody that watches this recording wants to jump in and get involved in the pre-sale, you can go to horizonstate.com/whitelist, and by registering your Ethereum deposit address there, and also signing up to our mailing list, we'll be sure to send you out a URL which includes our pre-sale deposit address, so you can get that token bonus. The pre-sale will launch sometime over the next few days, and it will run up until October 16 when the public sale starts, at which point the token bonus diminishes. It diminishes after day one, and then again after the first week, running into the second and final week of the sale. So what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, do you have any exchanges lined up?
Yes, absolutely. So we're in talks with a couple of big ones. I won't drop the names, but to say that anybody watching this recording will know them. They're not insignificant exchanges, but we haven't got the final sort of agreements over the line yet. But those are in play discussions, and we expect that we'll be trading on those exchanges within just a couple of weeks of the token sale closing.
Cool. And regarding your contracts, did your team write the contracts, or are you working with a third-party vendor, or?
So Nemo Namani, our Chief Technology Officer, wrote the contract. It's just come out of audit, and it's passed with flying colours. So there's a couple adjustments that we're looking to make based on the feedback. But yeah, it's all gone very well, and that'll be ready to basically start this pre-sale process over the coming days.
So you said there's been an audit. That was going to be my next. Okay. And is it public who did the audit, or?
It will be. We'll be announcing that with the contract over the next couple of days. But it's a reputable crew. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, well, I'm going to stick my Ethereum address on this pre-sale registration, and I'll chip in a little bit.
Excellent.
That sounds cool. Yeah, I like this project. It's really cool. One of the things that's that's not clear is when a company or when an ICO's going, and the tokens just represent the security. It's not really clear what that gives you, but this is not that. This is very, as far as I can tell, this is very clearly utility token. I like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that was by design, whereas it's strictly a utility token with a very specific purpose in mind. And look, I think there's some great projects out there at the moment. I've been investing in ICOs myself over the past year or so. But particularly privileged and happy to be working on this, because not only is it cool technology, not only does it have the opportunity to return good value to people that want to get involved at this ground level, but it's a really important mission. I think it has potentially significant and profound impact for the whole world.
Reduce corruption, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an important mission. I agree. Yeah. Okay. So let me think. There was one more question that flitted into my mind for a second, but no worries. If it pops back, I'll email you and just ask you. But yeah. Okay. Good luck with the token sale. Yeah, I will participate in a small way.
Amazing. Thank you.
Good. So yeah, good luck. Thanks for talking to me. And
thanks for taking the time. Cheers.
Yeah, no worries. So again, it's horizonstate.com.
Yep, that's right. Awesome. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye.